I've spent my entire adult life mastering the art of being unseen. It's not something you set out to learn. It just happens, gradually, like calluses forming on your hands from years of carrying too much. You learn to step aside in crowded subway cars so others can sit. You learn to speak softly so your voice doesn't take up space someone else might need. You learn to smile at customers who never quite meet your eyes, to fold yourself quiet and small so the people you love most can stand tall in whatever light is available. My name is Emma Thompson. I'm 50 years old, and I live in a walk-up apartment in the South Bronx where the radiator hisses like it's angry at the world, and the hallway always smells faintly of someone else's cooking. For 26 years, every single breath I've taken, every overtime shift I've picked up, every meal I've skipped, every tear I've swallowed has belonged to one person, my son, Ethan James Thompson. Let me take you all the way back, not just to that one unforgettable afternoon at Harvard, but to every ordinary, exhausting, beautiful day and night that built the road to it. Because this isn't the story of a single moment on a stage. This is the story of thousands of unseen moments, of quiet battles fought in kitchens, in laundromats, in empty offices at 3 a.m. Moments that somehow, against every odd, added up to a miracle. I met Michael Thompson when I was 22 years old, and still believed the world was mostly kind. I was working the counter at a tiny coffee shop attached to his auto repair shop on Fordham Road. He came in every morning at 7:15 sharp. Black coffee, buttered roll, grease still under his fingernails from the first car of the day. He had this smile that started slow and then lit up the whole room, and eyes the color of a summer ocean. He'd lean on the counter and tease me about putting too much sugar in his coffee, even though he never took sugar. He'd ask about my shift, my weekend plans, the book I was reading on my break, like my answers actually mattered. 6 months later, we were married in the courthouse on a Tuesday afternoon with 2 coworkers as witnesses and a $10 bouquet of carnations from the bodega on the corner. We didn't have money for a honeymoon, so we spent the weekend in our new apartment eating takeout Chinese and laughing about how we were going to save the world, one fixed carburetor and one perfect cup of coffee at a time. A year after that, Ethan arrived. 7 pounds, 2 ounces of pure wonder. He came into the world screaming, tiny fists waving like he was already fighting for something. He had Michael's blue eyes and my stubborn chin. And from the very first moment I held him, I knew my heart no longer belonged only to me. We weren't rich, never were, never pretended to be. Michael worked long hours at the shop. I kept waitressing. We rented a 1-bedroom apartment where the walls were thin and the radiator clanked like it was arguing with the pipes. But we had dreams. We talked about them every night after Ethan fell asleep between us in our bed because his crib was too small and the apartment too cold. We'd save for a little house upstate with a yard big enough for a dog and a swing set. Maybe open a bigger garage together one day. Teach Ethan how to change his own oil, how to throw a baseball, how to treat people with kindness even when the world wasn't kind back. Life felt wide open, full of promise. Then came the cough. At first, we thought it was just a cold that wouldn't quit. Then bronchitis. Then stress from the shop being slow that winter. Michael started losing weight he couldn't spare. Nights, he'd wake up coughing so hard, I'd hold him until his body stopped shaking. We kept putting off the doctor because the copay was $50 we didn't have. By the time we finally went, the x-rays showed shadows everywhere. The doctor used words like aggressive and advanced and limited time. Michael just squeezed my hand under the table and asked how soon he could get back to work. He fought for 6 months. Ethan turned 7 2 weeks before the end. I still remember every detail of those hospital days. The sharp antiseptic smell, the constant beeping of machines, the way the fluorescent lights made everyone look gray. I remember Michael's hand getting thinner every week, but still reaching for mine every time I walked into the room. I remember Ethan sitting in the plastic chair beside the bed, drawing pictures of cars for his dad to hang in the garage when he came home. The last morning, Michael could barely speak above a whisper. He looked at Ethan, asleep in the chair, then at me. "Take care of our boy, Em," he said, voice cracking. "Tell him every day how proud I am. Promise me you'll keep him believing he can do anything." I promised. He died 3 hours later, with my hand in his and Ethan and curled up against his side. The funeral was small, 10 people in a cold chapel on a gray February day. Ethan stood beside me in a black suit I'd bought secondhand, 2 sizes too big so he could grow into it. He held my hand so tightly his little knuckles turned white. He didn't cry in front of anyone, not until we got home, not until I tucked him into bed that night and he finally whispered, "Mommy, is Daddy really gone forever?" I lied to him that night. I told him Daddy was in heaven watching over us, that he'd always be with us in our hearts. I didn't know if I believed it, but I needed Ethan to believe something good still existed, because if he stopped believing, I didn't know how either of us would keep going. After the funeral, reality crashed in. The medical bills arrived like an avalanche. Tens of thousands of dollars we didn't have. Funeral costs, back rent. I sat at our little kitchen table at 3 a.m., surrounded by envelopes, and cried until there were no tears left. Then I dried my face, made a pot of weak coffee, and started making a list of every place hiring in the Bronx. 3 jobs became my new normal. Mornings and afternoons at Dino's Diner on Fordham Road, slinging hash browns, pouring endless coffee refills, smiling through sore feet and customers who snapped their fingers for service. Nights cleaning offices in midtown skyscrapers, vacuuming conference rooms where executives made more in an hour than I made in a day, dusting desks covered with family photos of vacations I'd never take. Weekends, I folded laundry and changed beds at a nursing home in Queens, listening to elderly residents tell stories of lives I envied for their simplicity. Some weeks I worked 90 hours, 95. I'd get home at 2 or 3 a.m., collapse on the couch for 3 or 4 hours, then get up to make Ethan oatmeal and walk him to school before my next shift. Money was always tight. We ate a lot of macaroni with canned tuna, a lot of rice and beans, a lot of peanut butter sandwiches. When Ethan's shoes got holes, I patched them with duct tape until I could save enough for a new pair from Payless. When the heat got shut off one brutal winter, we wore coats inside and slept under every blanket we owned, telling each other stories until we fell asleep. When Christmas came and there was nothing under our tiny tree, I wrapped things we already had, Michael's old wristwatch, a new notebook and pencils, and told Ethan Santa knew he needed tools for his future more than toys. But Ethan never once complained. At 8 years old, he started doing his own laundry because he saw how my hands trembled from exhaustion. At 9, he got a paper route before dawn to buy his own school supplies. At 10, he'd bring home report cards full of A's and say, "It's okay we can't go on vacation, Mom. We have adventures right here," and turn our tiny living room into pirate ships or space stations with nothing but cardboard boxes and imagination. When he was 12, he started checking out library books about the law, thick volumes on the Constitution, famous Supreme Court cases, stories of lawyers who fought for justice. One night, I found him reading under the covers with a flashlight long past bedtime. I sat on the edge of his bed and asked what he was doing. He looked up at me with those serious blue eyes, Michael's eyes, and said, "Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to help people who don't have anyone to fight for them, people like us." My heart stopped for a moment. I didn't tell him it was impossible. I didn't tell him kids from our zip code didn't go to Ivy League schools. I just pulled him close and whispered, "Then that's exactly what you'll do, baby. And I'll be right here helping you every single step of the way." High school was relentless. He took every advanced class, stayed after school for extra help, studied at the public library until it closed. But the guidance counselor called me in one day after I'd taken 3 buses to get there for parent-teacher night. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, voice kind but laced with pity, "Ethan is very bright, but top-tier colleges like Harvard or Yale, they're extremely competitive and very expensive. Perhaps he should consider community college first, or a trade school." I thanked her politely, went home, cried silently in the shower so Ethan wouldn't hear. But Ethan didn't listen to her. He applied to every scholarship, every grant program, every opportunity he could find. He wrote essays that made strangers cry. He studied for the SAT until he got a perfect score on his second try. When the thick envelope from Harvard arrived, full scholarship, he ran into our apartment waving it like a victory flag, screaming, "Mom, Mom, we did it! We actually did it!" I hugged him so hard I thought my ribs might crack. "No, baby. baby. You did it. Undergraduate years were a whirlwind of pride and painful distance. He worked 2 jobs on campus, tutoring and cafeteria, to send money home for bills. I still worked 3. We saw each other mostly during breaks and Sunday night phone calls that I lived for all week. Every Sunday he'd ask, "How are you really doing, Mom?" And every Sunday I'd lie and say, "I'm great, honey. Just so proud of you I could burst." But the truth was, I was tired down to my bones. Some nights after a 16-hour day, I'd sit at our little kitchen table with a cup of weak coffee and wonder how much longer my body could keep going. Then I'd look at the photo of Ethan on the fridge, smiling in his new Harvard sweatshirt, and I'd find the strength for one more shift, one more week, one more year. Law school came next. Harvard again, full scholarship. Top 10% of his class from day one. Law review editor, moot court champion, professors who pulled him aside after class to say he had one of the sharpest legal minds they'd ever seen. He called me after his first semester grades came in, voice shaking with excitement. "Mom, I got the highest grade in contracts. The professor said my paper was the best he'd read in 20 years. I cried on the diner's back steps during my break, hiding my face so the cooks wouldn't see. Through every milestone, I stayed firmly in the background. I never wanted my tired eyes or worn-out shoes to embarrass him in front of classmates whose parents flew private or stayed in 5-star hotels. I wore the same black dress to every event, the one I'd bought on clearance 8 years earlier at Macy's. It was faded now, a little tight around the middle from years of stress-eating cheap carbs, but I kept it clean and pressed. I sat in the back rows, took photos from a distance with my old flip phone, took the bus home alone so he could celebrate with friends who understood this world better than I ever would. I told myself it was better that way. Mothers like me are meant to be scaffolding. We hold everything up quietly until the building is finished, then we step aside so the light can shine on what we built. So, when his law school graduation day finally arrived, I did exactly what I'd always done. I took the 5 a.m. Greyhound from Port Authority, clutching the printed invitation he'd mailed me like it was made of solid gold. I'd stayed up late the night before, ironing my dress one last time, polishing my simple black flats from Payless, the ones I'd bought with a coupon 2 years ago. I even put on a little makeup, something I rarely bothered with anymore. On the long bus ride north, I kept repeating to myself, "Just don't cry until it's over, Emma. Hold it together long enough to see him walk across that stage." Harvard Yard in May is almost too beautiful to bear, like stepping into a dream you're afraid to touch. Red brick buildings bathed in golden sunlight, green lawns full of laughter, crimson gowns fluttering everywhere like flags of triumph. I walked through it all feeling like I'd wandered onto a movie set by mistake, clutching my old purse, trying to find Sanders Theater among the maze of historic buildings. When I finally stepped inside the grand hall, the difference hit me like a physical force. Families everywhere, mothers in designer silk dresses and pearl earrings, fathers in bespoke suits shaking hands with deans and professors, grandparents with professional cameras, siblings taking selfies, champagne flutes clinking, laughter echoing off vaulted ceilings that seemed to reach heaven itself, grown children being hugged by both parents at once, surrounded by love that looked effortless. I stood near the back, scanning hundreds of crimson gowns, searching for Ethan's face. That's when the event coordinator found me. Perfect blonde bob, clipboard in hand, practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said kindly. "Are you with the catering staff? We're desperately short-handed in the back for refreshments. Could you possibly help us out?" I opened my mouth to correct her, to say, "No, I'm a guest. I'm here for my son. I'm Ethan Thompson's mother." But the words caught in my throat like barbed wire, because in that moment, looking down at my faded dress, my tired hands with faint burn scars from diner grease, my shoes that had walked thousands of miles on concrete, I believed her. I believed I looked exactly like someone who belonged behind a serving tray, not in a seat among these polished families. families. 26 years of being unseen had taught me a terrible, quiet lesson. Sometimes it's less painful to stay invisible than to risk being told you don't belong at all. So I nodded. Of course, I can help. For the next hour, I disappeared completely. I carried heavy silver trays of champagne flutes and coffee cups that rattled with every step. I refilled water pitchers until my arms ached. I arranged pastry platters and folded white napkins into perfect crisp corners. I smiled politely when guests thanked me without ever looking at my face. One father snapped his fingers impatiently and said, "Miss, we need more ice over here." Another mother in diamonds and pearls asked if the gluten-free scones were clearly labeled. Another parent complained that the coffee had gone lukewarm. I served them all quietly, efficiently, the way I had served the world for decades, without complaint, without demanding to be seen. And the whole time, I watched Ethan from the edges. Through glass doors, from behind marble pillars, from the dim service corridor. He was near the front, laughing with classmates, shaking hands with professors, posing for photos with friends whose parents stood proudly beside them. He looked so tall now, so confident, so completely at home in this world of ivy and achievement that I'd only ever glimpsed from the outside. My chest ached with a pride so fierce it felt like it might split me open. Then the ceremony began. I stayed in the back, half hidden behind a heavy velvet curtain near the service door, still holding an empty tray like it could shield me from how small I felt. The dean gave speeches about excellence and service and the future of justice. Degrees were conferred. Names were called one by one. Applause rose and fell like waves. I watched Ethan walk across the stage, accept his diploma with that same slow smile his father used to have. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. Then the dean returned to the microphone one final time, his voice softer now, more intimate. "Before we close," he said, "we have one last tradition at Harvard Law School. Every year, we pause to honor not just our graduates, but the quiet, relentless forces who made their journeys possible, the ones who worked multiple jobs without complaint, who sacrificed their own dreams so someone else could chase theirs, who carried hope when it weighed more than anything else they owned." The hall grew still. This year's Parent of Distinction Award goes to a woman whose life has been a masterclass in love made visible through action. A woman who lost her husband to cancer when her son was only 7 years old, who raised that boy alone through grief and poverty and every obstacle the world could invent, who worked 3, sometimes 4 jobs for over a decade so he would never go hungry, never go without books or shoes or belief in himself, who sold her wedding ring, the last piece of value she had left from her marriage, to pay for LSAT prep courses, who took 3 buses to every parent-teacher conference, who stood in the back of every ceremony in the same faded dress because it was the only nice one she owned, who cried only in places her child could not see so he would never lose faith in tomorrow. My breathing stopped completely. I wasn't fully listening anymore. I was still watching Ethan, memorizing every second of his triumph. Then the dean said my name, Emma Thompson. The crystal slipped from my fingers. Crystal shattered across marble like 1,000 tiny gunshots. Champagne sprayed in golden arcs. Water glasses rolled and spun. The sound echoed through the sudden, breathless silence. Hundreds of heads turned as one. Hundreds of pairs of eyes found me, standing in the back in my faded black dress, surrounded by broken glass and spilled dreams. Tears already streaming down my face in rivers I couldn't stop. The dean smiled gently, warmly. "Emma Thompson, please come forward." Ethan was already on his feet. His face was pale, eyes wide and glistening with tears. He mouthed one word across the vast distance between us. "Mom." My legs felt like they belonged to someone else, But they carried me forward, past rows of whispering guests, past the event coordinator whose hand now covered her mouth in shock and shame, past families who had asked me for coffee, for ice, for directions, families now staring with dawning recognition and regret. I walked the long aisle alone, stepping carefully over broken glass that crunched beneath my shoes, feeling every single eye on me. I climbed the steps to the stage. The dean met me halfway. He didn't just hand me the award, he placed it gently in my trembling hands like it was something sacred and fragile. Heavy crystal, engraved in gold letters I could barely read through tears. For boundless sacrifice, unwavering love, and the quiet courage that builds futures. Then Ethan reached me. He didn't wait for protocol or permission or decorum. He just wrapped his arms around me the way he had when he was 7 years old, and thunderstorms terrified him in our tiny apartment. I felt his shoulders shake with silent sobs against mine. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he whispered into my hair, voice breaking completely. "I should have told everyone who you were the moment you walked in. I should have made sure they knew from the very beginning. You're not staff. You're not invisible. You're my hero. You're my whole world." I couldn't speak. I could only hold him tighter, breathing in the scent of his hair, feeling 26 years of love and fear and exhaustion and joy all crash over me at once, like a wave I'd been waiting my whole life to surrender to. He pulled back just enough to take the microphone from the dean. The entire hall was silent, waiting. "This is my mother," Ethan said, tears falling freely now. "Her name is Emma Thompson. After my dad died, she raised me completely alone. She worked 3 jobs, sometimes 4, so I would never go hungry, never go without school supplies, never feel like I was less than anyone else. She sold her wedding ring, the ring my father gave her, so I could take test prep classes. She missed meals so I could eat. She missed sleep so I could study. She cried only where I couldn't see, so I would never lose hope." His voice cracked, but he kept going. "She took 3 buses to every school event, stood in the back of every ceremony in the same dress because it was the only nice one she owned, and never once complained. She told me every single day that I could do anything, that I belonged anywhere I wanted to be, and then she worked herself to the bone to make it true." He turned to look at me, eyes shining. "I am standing here today, holding this Harvard law degree because this woman never let go of me, not for 1 second, not even when she had nothing left to give. She is the strongest, most loving, most selfless person I will ever know, and I am so proud, so endlessly, fiercely, forever proud to be her son." The audience rose as one. The applause started slowly, then built into a thunder that shook the very rafters of Sanders Theater. People cried openly, fathers in expensive suits wiping tears with monogrammed handkerchiefs, mothers in silk dresses sobbing into tissues, professors and students standing and cheering and clapping until their hands were red. The event coordinator was bent over near the back, crying into her sleeve. Strangers all around the hall turned to each other, whispering through tears, "That was her. That was his mother. Did you see?" I looked out at them, all these people who had never truly seen me before, and for the first time in my entire life, I felt seen. Deeply, completely, undeniably seen. Later, outside beneath the ancient elm trees, as golden sunlight slanted through the leaves and painted everything in warm light, people didn't approach me for coffee or ice or directions. They came to embrace me, to thank me, to share pieces of their own hearts they'd never told anyone before. One father in a tailored suit took both my hands in his. "My wife and I both work long hours," he said, voice thick. "We thought we were tired. We thought we were sacrificing. We had no idea what real exhaustion looked like until today. Thank you for showing us what truly matters." The mother in pearls, the one who had asked about gluten-free scones, approached with tears still falling. "I judged you," she said quietly, voice shaking. "When you were serving, I didn't even look at your face. I didn't see you. I'm so sorry. You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever met." I smiled through my own tears. It's okay, I told her gently. I was used to being invisible, but today you all saw me, and that is more than I ever dared to dream. Ethan never left my side for the rest of the day. He pinned the crimson Harvard Mom button to my dress himself, right over my heart, fingers trembling as he fastened it. We took photographs, so many photographs, under the trees, beside the Charles River as it sparkled in the late afternoon sun, in front of Sanders Theater with its grand columns. He kept his arm around me the entire time, like he was afraid I might vanish if he let go even for a second. As sunset painted the sky the same deep crimson as his gown, we walked along the river together, just the two of us. He rested his head on my shoulder, just like he used to when he was little, and the world felt too big and too loud. "I love you, Mom," he whispered, voice soft against the evening breeze. I pressed a kiss to the top of his head. "I love you more, baby," I said, my voice finally steady. "Every double shift, every skipped meal, every tear I hid in the dark, every dream I set aside, it was all for you. And I would do it all again 1,000 times without changing a single thing." He squeezed my hand tight. "You won't have to anymore," he said firmly. "From now on, I take care of you. I promise." I smiled through fresh tears that felt different now, lighter, full of hope instead of exhaustion. And for the first time in 26 years, I believed that tomorrow could be gentle, that I didn't have to carry everything alone anymore, that all of those years of quiet, unseen, relentless love had built something visible and lasting and breathtakingly beautiful. Because today, they didn't just call my name. They saw me. They honored me. They reminded the entire world and me that every invisible act of love matters. It builds futures. It builds people. It builds miracles. This is Emma Thompson, mother of Ethan James Thompson, Harvard Law class of 2025. And this is the day I finally stepped out of the shadows and into the light. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think of someone in your own life who loves quietly and fiercely every single day without asking for recognition, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Silent Justice Stories for more real stories of resilience, sacrifice, and the kind of love that changes everything without ever demanding anything in return. Turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Thank you for listening. Thank you for seeing the unseen. Thank you for being here.